Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Lyre event, in which a Lyriath is added to the game. So, probably the most noteworthy thing that actually happened today, other than, of course, the start of this new event in the new Tower of Doom, is, of course, all of our tokens from last week that you had for the World Lore event have now been converted into Medals of Season, or their respective rarity. So all the tokens became tokens of seasons, all of the badges became badges of seasons, and all of the medals became medals of seasons, as you can see right over here. So this is a new medal that was technically added as of today. Technically, it came in the most recent patch of version 4.8, and basically the tokens, of course, as any token, does nothing. The badges gives 1 to attack, life, and armor, and then the medal of seasons, once you get it all the way max, gives 4 attack, life, and armor. One other nice thing that you can do with these two, if you happen to have a lot of spear, though most people likely only have 1, 2, or 3 medals at the moment, but once future events come, you can only get these once every month during those World Lore events, but when it comes back around again, you'll be able to go and use your excess that you have to level up troops. These count as the exact same as Arachnia, as an epic rarity medal whenever you're upgrading troops, so you can use them exactly the same when you want to get around to that. But yeah, 2 and 3, obviously if you have 2, you'd probably want to run it with something like a 20% mana start, and having 3 of them is a pretty hefty amount of attack, or amount of stats, I mean, giving a total of 12 attack, 12 life, and 12 armor for 24 total durability with a 12 attack gain. Obviously, Arachnia in the current state of the game is completely useless, given that it gives 4 attack, which is the exact same as Medal of Seasons. They're likely to tweak that in the future. But yeah, pretty much anytime you draw on Arachnia, you just use this now. And if you just want general durability, you'd probably use this too. If you don't specifically need armor or HP for boost ratio, you'd most likely want to use Seasons, as you'd still get the full overall durability while also getting some additional attack that will help whenever you poke with skulls. So overall, really solid medal, and probably going to use a lot as kind of just a default medal, particularly for things like Guild Wars, just because almost every single team could theoretically run with this pretty decently. Might not be the absolute optimal for every single team, but pretty much any team, due to the amount of sheer stats that this gives, will be able to roll with Medals of Seasons. So really nice medal overall. And if you don't have enough to set, like if you only have 1 or 2 at the moment, do be mindful that you'll be able to get more in a month from now when the event rolls back over again. And of course, the event will hopefully be scored a little bit easier than it was last time. But anyways, let's get into everything that we have this week. So, Lyriath, absolutely love this thing's art. Brown-yellow trait stones, so great for Cockatrice, Gorgotha, things like that. If you still haven't gotten those traded, really nice utility troops. But as far as the Lyriath itself, it is unfortunately useless despite how great its art is. It gives a bunch of life and 2 magic to all yellow allies, so you can only really use this on about yellow Guild War, because this wouldn't really scale at all on Tower of Doom. But you'd probably never really want to use it at all, because all it really has as an additional benefit is there's this 35% chance to summon a copy of the first enemy. This could potentially have been good if it was a 100% chance to summon a first enemy. Even then, it would still be super situational and probably underwhelming. But given that's a percent chance, it is basically dead content, because that is way too low of a chance to get something that you might not even necessarily overall need unless it was guaranteed. So unfortunately, this thing is going to become dead content immediately. It does have a nice combination of Light Storm into a +1 yellow. Seems like they're really trying to get this to kind of be viable for something like a Guild Wars, or whenever you're restricted to pure yellow like Tower of Doom this week. But overall, I feel like it's just too underwhelming, unfortunately. So do be mindful of that. You'd still probably want to get it for its trade stones and to get it for kingdom upgrades, but the troop itself you're probably not going to be using this week unless you want to use it as a useless 4th troop in PvP for the sake of having yourself some extra glory. Because if you use it in PvP this week, it does give you 5 additional glory per battle. This isn't the best way to really get glory. You might as well just wait until a Gnome event comes back around, which I believe is 2 weekends from now. Actually, it's the weekend of Easter is the next Vault event, which you can get a lot of glory from. But if you need some glory now in a pinch, you could just put this into a PvP team with 3 troops, put this in last slot, and get a little bit of farming that way. What's pretty noteworthy this week is there is a Suncrest 10% and the Strix 10%. This is going to be pretty useful for this kingdom, as that's 20% to pretty much the entirety of the kingdom. This will be really good for the Legend and Stone Song area, as well as for the Stormcaller class itself. So those 2 troops will probably gain the biggest benefit from having this 20% this week, so worth considering to use in various teams, as they'll have a substantially higher amount of stats, plus they both work in yellow-oriented things, which we'll need for Tower of Doom. Other than that, chests this week, we have ourselves, of course, event keys for the location of Suncrest. As far as what the drop table is, it is everything here with 5 exceptions. Doom of Light is only from the yellow Tower of Doom, and all those troops that say Stonesong Aerie next to them are only obtainable by throwing 20 shards each to open up portals in the Stonesong Aerie faction. But everything else you see here is obtainable through the event keys this week. The most noteworthy thing that is obtainable through event keys is Finesse. Finesse is not a really high priority as far as how early you'd want to get it. It becomes really good towards later in the game for a couple of reasons, mostly because it's really good at killing things that Rowain can't with a single cast with no buffs. So for that range of troops, kind of like Explore 4 to 6 and stuff like that, that kind of range of stats, as well as dungeons and some of the higher levels of your daily delves, your daily adventure board. Things like that she tends to be pretty good for. Pretty much anything a Rowain can't instantly one-shot, because her overall damage is actually substantially higher in those situations. It's because it applies it to everything rather than just to split its damage distributed. It does have a higher mana cost, however you can half mana start it, so it only needs a 12. Whereas Rowain, when you only need a quick cast for lower level range, obviously you'd want to use that since you only need 6. But Finesse, really, really great troop. It has the highest single cast full AoE. That doesn't mean it has the overall highest full AoE damage in the game, but if you only need one cast to win the battle, or potentially even 2 casts to win out the entire battle, but mostly 1, she's actually the best AoE troop in the game for that, mostly because of the amount of high damage that she has, due to the fact that she does double the amount of damage if there is a firestorm. And obviously now that they have fixed Sunspear again, and now Sunspear, of course, as of the other week, was moved back to normal, Sunspear does have Perpetual Red Storm, which is synergized very, very well with Finesse. So great combination to use. So worth considering opening some event keys to try to get her if you haven't already. Though do keep in mind she is very situational, and I feel like I mostly only use her for dailies and for the highest trophy rate in the game of farming Explore 5. But both of them you could do by other means, so you don't necessarily need to go out of your way to go for Finesse, but it's definitely a troop worth considering if you have about half the mythics in the game and you still have some spare event keys to throw. And along the way you'll get some extra things like Taloka maxed and probably Sunbird maxed. Fortunately, Queen Zachi, which is probably the second best thing in this kingdom, is only obtainable through the shards. And of course that is from Stonesong Aerie over here, over in this faction, and to get her you just simply throw these down, and as you can see she's right there, and she's pretty good. She'll have 20% this week. Really nice AoE. She's kind of like a mini Infernus in a way, so if you don't have Infernus because it's higher rarity and you're still earlier on in the game, or just don't happen to have him in general, really great option. Has 5 explosions, has the full AoE damage, which does mean it can be countered by Submerge, but still great overall damage. And it has a backup summon too, which is useful in some specific situations if you just need a frontline tank, and a bit of spell reduction. Overall, pretty great troop. Anyways, other things. So, of course, for our guild event this week, we have ourselves the Tower of Doom. As far as the weapon, we have an interesting type of weapon. I believe this was the first one of its kind, and they're okay. They're basically the second best Doom weapons in the game. Do keep in mind, I'm not sure if I'm actually going to go out of my way to go and upgrade these. Obviously, the main 6 Doom weapons in the game are the ones that do full AoE damage while doing a Doom Skull Convert. Those are pretty much the only Doom weapons in the game, just because every other one is pretty bad in comparison. However, these are kind of okay. It deals heavy splash damage to an enemy, and +4 per tempering level, meaning that that would end up giving you quite a substantial amount of damage, because not only is it going to give you 40 additional damage to the specific thing that you're going to be hitting through to 10 levels, you would also get 75% of that value, meaning that you're also going to be hitting 30 onto the 2 adjacents, meaning in total, for getting this thing maxed, you're going to be doing 100 additional damage overall as far as your damage output. So not too bad in that regard. As far as its extra features, it gets to stun all yellow enemies and cleanse all yellow allies. It gets to explode 4 gems, and if there is if the enemy has a doom, it gets to also explode 3 more for a total of 7. So overall, it's a interesting weapon to consider. I'm not sure if I'm going to max these, but if you were to max any second Doom weapon in the game, it's going to be all of these doomed kind of gravel-like things. I'm not sure what the other ones will be called, but the ones that have these heavy splash damage, I would definitely say they're way lower priority than the full AoE Doom weapons that do Doom Skulls. But these are probably second priority, though I'm probably still going to hold off because we don't currently know what the next set will do, which will be coming in several months from now, so probably by about September or so. So when those do roll around, we obviously don't know what they are yet. So I'm probably going to hold off for now on upgrading these, but again, if you are looking for a second one, worth considering nonetheless. And of course, you need to spend 500 gems if you want to get it this way, but it's also in Soulforge if you want to get it that way. And of course, if you don't get it by the end of this week, you can also get it in the Soulforge slightly more expensive the next time that a next time that a Suncrest event ends up rolling around again. and we'll go over teams in a little bit for Tower of Dooms. Also, I didn't claim my star earlier. Suncrest can, as of right now, reach 14 stars. I don't believe it can go any higher. Am I missing something? Nope, it can reach 14 stars. So that's a thing. A little bit extra tribute or whatever that ends up giving. Not too much of a benefit, but hey, every little bit helps. Anyways, other things this week. Tuesday, we have Frostfire Keep, which has a somewhat easy pure faction, mostly because you just spam the rare. It has 65% score reduction, and that partially stacks with the 25% reduction, meaning it's basically like a Gorgoltha as far as how tanky it is, while having a true damage, while having a life gain. So it's, with potion effects, it's like one of the absolute easiest factions in the game. It could probably even be done without potions, so it might be, obviously will be a little bit harder. Other than that, Wednesday we'll be getting the Phoenix pet. Thursday will be, which I believe is Suncrest bonus, if I'm not mistaken. Thursday we'll be getting the hero class for Suncrest, which is Stormcaller. Really great hero class. It's also going to be very, very, very helpful in something like a yellow Tower of Doom, since it has Perpetual Yellow Storm. Similar to how Suncrest has Perpetual Red Storm, this is the other hero class that has it, which is Perpetual Yellow, and is among one of the better hero classes in the game. A little bit situational, but in those situations, of course, it is very, very strong. And other than that, for this Friday, we will be getting a new faction. So we'll be going over that once that ends up happening. Other than that, let's dig into Soulforge, which we have a couple things that are worth going for. As far as mythics are concerned, the main mythic that you'd probably want to tackle down is Tina 9000, if you want to consider it. It is still the best 50% spell reduction troop in the entire game. It also has the potential of being able to use for high skull input, with a 50% additional skull damage based on its armor. It ends up gaining armor as well off of its ability, which helps that as well. But the main thing it's normally used for is, well, it's two things. One is it's really high true damage. It gets to do a rather inconsistent amount. It's a really large range of how much damage it does, and it's completely random what it hits. However, it can randomly multi-tap the same troop, and generally in a PvP-like situation or similar stat situation to the enemy, if you double tap a enemy off of your random hits, you will end up getting the kill. So it's pretty decent in that regard, since casting it almost guarantee nets you a kill every single time you do it. And depending on how high it hits or where it hits, it could even like double kill, triple kill, depends on the stat difference and everything. But any kind of PvP-like situation or guild wars and things like that, pretty strong for. Its other really big combination is the fact that I mentioned 50% spell reduction into armor. So if you're up against a team that is extremely cast oriented, but they have no true damage, this tends to be one of the best basically cast tanks in the game in that regard, specifically if they're not doing true damage. If they're doing true damage, then it won't help as much. Of course, 50% spell reduction still works, but the armor doesn't. But where it really shines is against something like a Yagwe Queen Titania, for example, because all their damage is physical. So it's going to have to hit the armor first and then go into its HP. And with 50% spell reduction, it will be substantially reduced in the overall amount of damage that it would be able to apply to Tina 9000. So overall, pretty good mythic. I feel like I don't use it too often, really situational, but still a nice one to have nonetheless. Other than that, also you need it to get Adana to 10 stars as well, which I believe is an armor bonus. Other than that, there are two troops that are legendary that are potentially worth crafting. Again, legendaries generally aren't worth crafting. However, there are a few, like Dragon Soul, Yagwe, Queen Titania, and Web Spinner, two of which are available right now, that could theoretically be considered worth it just because of how ridiculously strong they are. First off, Web Spinner. Web Spinner got buffed like crazy a little over a year ago, and the main thing it ended up getting buffed on is its final ability got the capability of also doing triple damage to web. This is extremely relevant because it has a snare on its second ability, basically meaning that it gets to triple damage every single thing in the entire game that does not have immune to web. That is a lot of things, because unless they have impervious, very, very few things have like a natural immunity to web that isn't specifically impervious. Mostly the Dark Elves and like a very few small amount of troops that specifically just have a web immunity, but it's pretty small. Like I believe it's like 90-80% of troops in the game it can do triple skull damage to, so very, very lethal. One of the higher skull damage dealing troops in the game that we just put in first slot, and yeah, you can craft it for 800 diamonds this week. Other than that, Queen Titania is pretty noteworthy. It's mostly used in, of course, Yagwe Queen Titania combo. One thing that's also pretty noteworthy with her is, well, aside from the fact that she has really good boost ratio for early game, mid game, if you're looking to pick up a really nice damage source for earlier on in the game, she also has the best Fairy Fire currently in the game, having the capability to Fairy Fire a random enemy on 4x, 5x matches. This will be outdone by a mythic that will eventually have a 4x Fairy Fire, but until then, Queen Titania can still do it pretty well. And other than that, the main thing that actually does that she shines the best on is the fact that she actually has the highest amount of damage benefit of any legendary in the entire game for being upgraded. Assuming the entire team is Fairy Fired from her final trait, she will gain 6 additional magic from her being fully golden if you go and metal her up. And with this, you'll end up getting, of course, a 24 full AoE. But with her 50% additional damage, you'll be able to go get a substantial amount more, since you'll be getting 50% more each. You'll be able to do 9 damage additional per enemy troop, and that will end up totaling to a 36 additional damage that you would end up potentially getting just from having her fully metaled, which is a pretty substantial amount, and definitely worth considering. I ended up going and upgrading my Yagway first, but Queen of Tanya is my second goal for fully medaling as far as legends are concerned. Once we finally get the medals, that is. Of course, it takes quite a bit to get those medals, a lot of time, but we'll get there eventually. But anyways, yeah, that's the other one that's worth considering if you don't currently have a copy of it. Anyways, other than that, as far as weapons this week, we have ourselves, of course, the Doomed Glaive, which was over in the the Doomed event. I would advise getting it for 500 diamonds through the Doom event. However, if you do choose to craft it this way, it is available here. Other than that, Nimbus Bow and Plum Staff are both two things that can synergize with Suncrest pretty well. The one I would say is a little bit better is the Nimbus Bow, which will end up giving you a Strix, so it has a little bit of a wider range. Its coloration is also a little bit better with blue and yellow, and its green-purple coloration helps fill the gap because of quite a few Strixes I do not believe cover green. Actually, purple as well, because I know that Stonesong Aerie doesn't use any purple, but both its colors kind of help fill the hole that the typing tends to have, so ends up working out pretty decently. So worth considering, as a lot of things throughout this week, like, for example, Yellow Doom, and especially the Thursday class event, could end up utilizing it. And if you're just getting one for completionist purposes, that's probably the one to go for out of the ones that are available. Other than that, if you need something really cheap just for completionist purposes, there is a Light Sword. You would never actually use this, but super cheap, so potentially worth considering getting if you just want to have another weapon. Maybe you need it to upgrade the kingdom or something, but if you want it for completionist sake, it is there, though it would never actually be used. Anyways, now with all that out of the way, let's go over a couple teams now. So I believe I have 7 or 8 teams to show, somewhere around there. Lost counts. But mostly it's just some Doom teams, some things that use the new medals, which we're actually going to show off as well. So we'll just show through all of them, and then we'll go use our 2 teams. So right here's probably one of my favorite teams to use the new medals with, as I mentioned in the past. As far as troops that would gain a benefit from medals of seasons, one of the biggest ones that would gain a benefit is, of course, a Ketras, because he gets to use all 3 of those stats to boost ratio his ability, since, of course, he has a 2-to-1 boost ratio based on your attack, life, and armor. And, of course, what seasons does is a life, attack, and armor, all 3 of the stats that he ends up boost ratio off of. So that ends up working out pretty well. Tuliao here is one of my favorite mana generators that has been added in recent time. A little bit situational. Leprechaun and Mountain Crusher and other things are still better than in most situations. However, when you're using a pure color team that's green or all in green or all in yellow, she works pretty well. So, of course, you could try doing that with this. I didn't end up making one with it, but, of course, you can end up doing this with the Yellow Doom this week, too. But ends up working out pretty well for the for filling up mana, since you just do target on green or target on yellow when your pure team is like that, and then you end up getting an enchant to all of them and a pretty substantial amount of mana. Works really good when you're using multiple things that are blocking each other. So, for example, we have 2 Catches the Bulls here. Obviously, they fully block out each other. However, Tuliao will completely fill up this Catches the Bull, even though it is blocked out by the first Catches the Bull, and potentially even our weapon as well. But ends up working to give mana to things that are heavily blocked, and in this case, works out pretty well. We use Yasmine to feed HP, though you can use Mountain Crusher if you don't have Yasmine. And Ketras just hits 2nd slot, hits 4th slot, and then you pretty much just win. Ends up working out pretty well. As far as a cheaper variant of that exact same team, for any of you that don't have Yasmine's Pride or don't have a second Ketras, you could do it with Mountain Crusher, Tuliao, Apothecary, and Ketras the Bull. This gives the benefit of having a little bit more board control and gives you a cleanse. So if you're up against a Frost Mage kind of team, it would help quite a bit. It also has a bit of a quicker start compared to the Yasmine team, whereas the Yasmine team requires a little bit of luck right at the beginning, particularly either into yellow, or mostly into yellow, so you can end up getting Tuliao up. Yeah, this is a little bit safer overall, but it's also a little bit slower, since you won't be able to get the, you'll be able to cycle the Ketras, but you won't be able to get the double Ketras as quickly as when Tuliao would normally fill it up. Also, Tuliao would not be able to buff every single thing, since the entire team is in green. However, you could just do it all in on brown, or still do it for green for pretty good value, even though you wouldn't get it on your hero weapon. Theoretically, you could do Essence of Evil, but due to Apothecary and other options that would fit there, it feels a little bit better to go with Apothecary into Mountain Crusher instead. Other than that, for lower Doom, as well as a Seasons team that you can end up doing, this uses only rares, so really cheap team, and it uses Mountain Crusher Crusher. If you don't currently have Mountain Crusher, you get this at about level 100 or so, mid 100s. You get it from having 20-something Brown Mastery, if I'm not mistaken. Specifically, it has to be Hero Mastery, the ones that you get when you level up, not your total Mastery. But you end up getting Mountain Crusher that explodes a bunch of gems and creates a Brown Storm. Really nice. The Brown Storm is if you have it upgraded to 6, though, which I do advise highly doing, as it's really strong. But Bulette. Bulette's a interesting option in that it has a 50% Devour if there's 13 or more Brown. This entire team will easily be able to keep that many Browns. It has 50% score reduction, so it won't die as easily. And basically, what you use this for in the Doom is Devour, 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 let your hero die, and Skull Poke them all to death. And that's pretty much the whole strategy with this. Do keep in mind, you cannot devour the Doom itself. However, you will have so much attack by the time you reach the Doom that you can just kill it with skulls. So, worth considering if you need something cheap. Of course, the other cheap alternative is just to run something Mang-oriented, but it feels like we always go over Mang team, so figured we switch it up a little bit. And of course, Crysturtle, pretty recent rare, does basically acts like Apothecary, except it gets a barrier and submerge a random ally instead of cleanse. And Cockatrice here is mostly for mana drain and tangle, so they don't kill you. Particularly good once your hero dies to make sure your Bulette doesn't die, in case he isn't able to tank out the skull damage. But if he has at least one Devour, he most likely will be able to. And also gets to create a bunch of Brown, which not only feeds it into itself, but also feeds into your entire team. And if you do happen to have Mountain Crusher upgraded even more, you won't even really need to worry about the fact that they're blocked a little bit more. For one, you'll be getting so much excess Brown that all 3 of those will get up anyways. But the other thing, Mountain Crusher, if you get it upgraded enough, does have 2 additional mana to all Brown allies, so you would end up getting it even if it's completely blocked, kind of like how our Tuliao was doing for those other teams, except to a smaller amount of mana. Other than that, as far as Doom, of course, you can end up going more towards the Skull Spam route. However, Finesse has really grown on me for using it for this, and triple Finesse. I'm just going to be going triple Finesse for the Doom event. It's really cheap, too. It is advised to have it fully traded, which is a little bit more expensive, since it does require, I believe, 30 of the Puri level trait stone, among other trait stones, and a bunch of runics and stuff. But, yeah, it ends up gaining 4 stats to all Strix every single time you extra turn. That is 12 with 3 of them per extra turn that you do. That includes your hero, because your hero counts as Strix if you have it set to Stormcaller, which also has 20% additional stats. And then you just use it with a Doom weapon. You can switch out this Doom weapon to hard counter whatever the thing is. So if you have all 6 of the full AoE Doom weapons, if you're up against a green battle, you go green. If you're up against a red, go red, so on and so forth. And if you really want to have absolute maximum efficiency, if you have all 6, you can just keep trading out your weapon every single time into whatever the battle is. Though, of course, once you've reached your 25th battle, every battle therefore will be a pure yellow team, since it's yellow Doom. So you can just end up doing it that way with a Doom Dex to have the yellow counter. So, yeah, ends up working out pretty well. And definitely worth considering. And you basically spam Finesse. Main thing that makes this work is you give 6 mana to all of your other allies. So it might seem weird using like something like a pure yellow team or even a 2 yellow team if you're doing a different Doom weapon. But it does end up working out, because once you get this going, you have infinite mana, assuming they don't have mana drain. And you have enchant, assuming you bought any amount of potions. So you'll easily be able to go use that enchant to, by default, even if there's nothing on the board, have full mana after several turns. So you just cast it. As long as there's a storm in play, which you'll have perpetually off of the Stormcaller's final trait of Yellow Storm, you will just be able to keep gaining your mana up. So you give 6, you give 6. The first one's already at full mana. You go back to the first one, 6, 6, 6, and you just keep going back and forth between all of them. And since it's exactly 3 6s, you'll end up going and getting 18 mana every single time, since that will end up giving you the exact amount to go cast a Doom weapon at 18 mana cost. And it doesn't even matter what color Doom weapon it is, because it will give 6 3 times. So even if you are not taking any mana for it, it'll still have all 18. So even if it's yellow, it doesn't even really matter as much, since even though it's fully blocked by 3 other troops, you're going to have it after 3 casts anyways at full mana. So overall, really interesting kind of concept, and yeah, it's not that bad at all. Anyways, other than that, Frostfire Keep, of course, we have this for Tuesday. Of course, it is blue, so just truffle it. That's pretty much the easiest way. It's pretty much my default for whenever blue is available, and I don't know, I advise it. It's a pretty fun team, still really insanely good. Automatic extra turns, got a lot of green creation off your doubling off the troll. This one specifically uses Mirage Queen. Obviously, you can use Hero there instead if you so choose, like with a Warden if you want to bypass a merge, with a Green Storm, which ends up working out nicely. However, I just figured I'd show the Mirage Queen version for this one. You won't get Class XP if you do it this way. However, it's pretty nice since you get half mana start for everything, whereas compared to something like a Titan or a Warden, which you wouldn't end up getting as much of an initial mana start on. Anyways, other than that, Pure Faction is a little bit weird for this, in that you literally just spam the Frostfire Raph. I mentioned this a little bit earlier during this video, but he does have a pretty high score reduction, pretty much the same as a Gorgotha. 25% does stack, not completely stack. It's only does it. Basically, you get a 25% reduction, and you get a 65% reduction of that 25% reduction. So it's somewhere around like a mid 70s%. But you could basically say he's as tanky as a Gorgoltha, which is a 75% reduction score reduction troop. Not only that, but he gets to gain a lot of life. If you're going a bunch of potions, which if you were to go complete this event on a Tuesday to go do Pure Faction, you definitely are getting a lot of potions. Obviously, probably like buying tier 7 like 6 times, 7 times, somewhere around there. You'll have a pretty substantial amount of true damage steal. You get to not only do true damage to them, but whatever true damage you do, you will get to steal as life. So if he does something like 70 damage, you're gaining 70 life, and he will skull reduce all of that. So he's really, really tanky. But yeah, ends up working out pretty well. His boost ratio is pretty irrelevant since you'll just spam 4 of him. You could spam 3 of him and go for one of those stats effects, but honestly, you're pretty much just better off going 4. He's just such a good troop that you can just solo the entire Pure Faction with it. Works out really nice. Also, it is advised to metal it. It is only a rare, so it is pretty cheap to metal. And if you metal it just once, obviously your whole team will be metaled since you can just spam the troop 4 times over. So yeah, really cheap to metal and definitely worth considering if you're going for that Pure Faction if you feel like you just need a little bit extra stats. And he does gain mostly durability, so it's mostly just to not die, which will help out since obviously if you're doing level 500 Pure Faction, it's pretty easy to accidentally die, but he's pretty good at not doing so between all the factors he has. So yeah, that's as far as Pure Faction goes for that. And other than that, Stormcaller class, the last one. As far as teams, this is restricted to specifically Strixes from specifically Strixes from Suncrest. So, of course, we could use Stormcaller hero class with this, and that's actually what the event is for, of course. And everything on his team would have 20% because, of course, they're all Strixes and they're all from Suncrest, which is a restriction that you have for this event anyways. So it ends up working out really well. Queen Zachi in most situations would likely be your primary damage source. As I mentioned earlier, you can get this from throwing Chaos Shards at the Stone Song AoE faction. It's a random chance. Forget the exact rate, but you'd get it within a couple hundred most likely. Might take a little bit longer. But yeah, she has a nice full AoE, a little bit of explosion here and there, and overall going to be a nice damage source just to quickly get through the event, regardless of how far you plan on going with it. Anyways, let's go and mess around with this team real quick. So, I was mentioning this team right here, which is the Yasmine's Pride, Tuliao, Ketras the Bull. So, basically what we want to do with this team, ideally, is we go and Yasmine Pride the first slot. We then go, well, first we want to go get Tuliao to full mana. That's our first priority before anything else. So, we get Tuliao to full mana. Luckily, we get a nice little cascade there, so we already have Yasmine. So we'll get this full mana. We'll now go and Armor Tier. Also, they fixed a glitch where Armor Tier instantly kills you. As you can see, we did not die from that off of Reflection. That used to be a thing when Reflection first came out. That has been fixed as of the patch since then. But yeah, that's a thing, or that's not a thing anymore. Anyways, Tuliao, of course, since we're on a pure green team, we end up casting this onto green. And you always want to throw that first Yasmine's Pride on the first slot when you do this. And the main reason for this is Ketras is generally casted onto second slot and then the 4th slot. And generally this will end up killing out the entire enemy team after 2 casts. I believe he might end up living here because this has 50% spell reduction. So that's a lot of spell reduction that he's going to do to us, unfortunately. But we'll still be able to go do the general strategy. So we did the Yasmine. So basically the order is get Tuliao up, cast Tuliao, Yasmine in the first slot, Ketras the second slot, and Ketras the 4th slot. This cycle will kill most teams. It won't kill everything. Like as you'll see right here, due to his spell reduction, it won't kill him. But it will kill most teams in the game. And since it won't kill him, I'm actually going to go for another Yasmine here since we already have the mana. And then throw the Ketras at him, and he'll be not dead. Gosh, spell reduction, so high. But we'll go for one more, and then that'll end up killing him out. But normally that would have killed, but 50% spell reduction kind of getting in the way a little bit there, unfortunately. There we go. And that ends up killing it out. And of course, let's just go show one last team, and that is the same kind of variant, just a little bit cheaper. So of course, we're running with 3 seasons at the moment, and this team has 20% bonus stats too. He's using a team around Plum Staff Archery. That's one of the weapons that is craftable this week, which gives a Suncrest bonus. But anyways, let's go and do this again. Oh, sorry, wrong team. No, I meant to switch my team real quick. Fail. Let me retreat. Fail, fail, fail. Not the team I wanted. Well, I guess we won't be going up against that team. Let's see. What can we get instead? Loading, loading, loading. There we go. Oh no! Life and death. If this can win against life and death, it can win against anything. But anyways, let's go use... Oh no. Okay, so one interesting thing about this weapon too, it is hard countered by Stealthy. So let's see how this does against a hard counter. Generally, you do not want to use Ketras the Bull against Stealthy. Main reason for this is, I explained the strategy from earlier, and obviously Stealthy ruins that strategy because he wants to hit second slot and then hit 4th slot. And if either of those 2 slots have Stealthy, well, he can't hit it. So that is slightly problematic. Well, let's see how we can do here, given that this is a little bit of a lesser kind of situation. We're probably actually going to lose this just because life and death. Because life and death. You guys know life and death. Let's see. We'll go throw for now. I feel like we're going to die to Death Mark if I try casting right now. I'm going to go for it, though, just so we can start poking him. So don't you dare die to it, please. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to use Apothecary. One nice benefit of this team compared to the other one is we do have the benefit of Cleanse, so any kind of status effect like that we can just get rid of. So I'm going to go for this instead of the Tuliao. Main reason for that is I want to go gain Barrier. Unfortunately, we did not end up cascading the Barrier there. Oh, wait, never mind. We don't get Barrier on this. Actually, I'm using this because we need half mana start for our last slot. We also end up getting some extra benefit to all of our green allies and a green storm at start of battle. So yeah, never mind. No Barrier on Brown. But we can still end up just kind of letting that die out because Ketras is the main thing that we need to be doing our damage with. The only big issue here is it doesn't look like he's going to kill us in one more cast. And I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do enough damage to life and death there. But we'll find out. So we'll go for that, get over our thing right there. At least we can get the Death Mark out, so we don't need to worry about that. However, I'm not sure if we're going to beat the clock on him killing us out, especially since we can't directly target him out. So right here, we'll go for the Explosion again. Hopefully get a nice little Cascade. Luckily, we did. Unfortunately, no extra turn, but we did get full mana, so that at least works. Go for that again. Unfortunately here, we actually won't be able to target it directly, and it does end up getting the kill, and Life and Death will do Life and Death. Good old Life and Death. Why must he be so annoying? I guess we'll do it against a Groshnak team. Groshnak, of course, was the event last week. Actually, let's find a different one. Here we go. Yagui Queen of Tanya meta, except he's doing it with the other converter. I have been seeing some people use it with this. I guess it works, a blue to red. I personally find Tapon to still be the better option for this. But, yeah, some people do like running it with the, what's his name? The First Mate X Blubber instead. I've been seeing that here and there. Anyways, we'll go for the Brown for now. Go get a Mountain Crusher going. But this is pretty much a standard Yagui Queen of Tanya team. We'll go take ourselves a red, which of course Queen of Tanya is craftable this week, and definitely worth considering if you don't currently own her, as it's a great troop. We might not see a cast from her, though if he starts winning, we might. But anyways, I'm going to hit him directly right now, and hopefully that'll be enough damage. Oh no, we're frozen! The freeze. Luckily he didn't go for a cast. He does not have alignment, but he's going to gain a lot of value. Hopefully we'll go for the skull instead. We'll see in a second. So of course we throw down second slot, we get a Mountain Crusher down, and hopefully get lucky off of the Mountain Crusher Cascade. Looks like Queen of Tanya might end up getting a cast in here, and she does. Really nice big AoE right there. She didn't have any Fairy Fire, luckily, so she didn't do as much, but we'll go throw this on the green, get all that rolling again. 1 mana off, of course. Unfortunate. We could just go for a Mountain Crusher right here. I think since it's just sitting there in first slot, we'll go for the Skull. Sometimes, whenever you're not using a Yasmine version of this team, you are generally going to need to take a Skull because your Ketras will not be enough damage to kill out first slot. One of the reasons for Yasmine on the first team, if you happen to have it, not only for the life gain to boost ratio up your Ketras, is also to go and tear away the armor of the first slot so that it will ideally die to the half damage adjacent from your Ketras. Whenever you do it without that, like we're doing with this team, you're going to normally need to take a skull in order to kill it out. But luckily, since we're using 3 seasons, you're going to have 12 additional attack, and that attack will hopefully be enough that one skull does kill out the first slot if you do a second slot and then a fourth slot cast. And then we do it on fourth slot, and generally that will get the kill. And as you can see, it does right there. And that's that. So you do it on second slot, do it on fourth slot, take a skull if you didn't already get one before then to kill out first slots, and they are dead. So same kind of premise of this other one, just a little bit of a different order. And yeah, catches the bull. Of course, gains the highest amount of benefit from it. Obviously, there's plenty of other teams that you could do this with, like various skull spams and stuff. Probably go over and mess around with more throughout the week, as it is just coming today, so I haven't had too much time yet to kind of mess around with what seasons can do. But obviously, over the next for foreseeable like week or so, we'll probably mess around, see what we can do. Maybe have some new Guild War teams that we could even use for it, given that seasons might open up what kind of team compositions we can use, since we'll gain a hefty amount of durability to full 24 while still having a substantial 12 attack gain. And even if not, we can still set it for Guild War Defend days pretty much every single day. You might just want to keep it as your default for the entirety of Guild War days, because of course, unfortunately, you cannot set medals per day. So whatever you're using for your defend also applies to your offensive, or whatever you're using offensively applies to your defend teams for Guild Wars. So worth considering to just kind of default plop seasons there, so you can just use it for everything, because Rowan can still function off it. Most teams can still function off it, other than the ones that want 20% mana starter magic. Those would be the only ones that wouldn't, but that's very few teams that would necessarily need to have that to function. But anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for this video. We'll be back, of course, later tonight with a live stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we do every single night. We'll be messing around with Tower of Doom and see what we can do with a yellow Tower of Doom. Maybe messing with a few skull spam teams, but probably most of the time we'll be messing around with Finesse and just getting some Tower of Doom done. But anyways, guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and I will catch all of you guys later. Goodbye, everyone!